like it's just like two old friends catching up, and then like we'll talk about all these different concepts. And be like, man, that's deep. And then before you know it, like an hour and a half done went by.
Yeah, because I mean, gosh, you and I we have some differences that I think help each other out, but we're very similar in a lot of ways.
Sure.
We like shiny things. We like, oh, new idea. The good idea fairy just visited me, so let me go chase that.
Absolutely.
And I can always tell the look on Keith's face when I have a new idea fairy moment, and I'm pitching it to him, and I can tell by the look in his eyes he's not having it. He's like, no, Jason, not again.
See, you need somebody like I have. So my brother, I have an older brother, and he's in the, what would I call it? He works on like power grids and substations and stuff like this, and he's like a manager. So what he does is he's all about safety, and like he's a safety guy. So he's picking apart everything that goes wrong. So whenever I bring a new idea, I'm like, his name's TK. I'm like, hey, or Tarek. I'm like, hey, Tarek, I got this idea. And before I know it, man, he's like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. I'm like, okay, well, I got an answer for that. So, like, he's kind of like my sounding board to kind of work through all these ideas. Because, I mean, like you, I'll get an idea, like, probably like 5, 6 in a day. And I'm like, ooh, I could do that. And then I have to, like, catch myself, or else I'll put time in it trying to figure it out. And it's like, no, just let that sit over there for a little bit and let it marinate, and then we'll come back to it.
I have two people in my life that help with that. So Farrah's great. Farrah and I complement each other very well because we're opposites in so many ways.
Yeah.
There's things we're very similar in.
Uh-huh.
We're very driven, motivated, and goal oriented. Yeah. And we principles are important to us. But I think that's where like we start to deviate. And so I'm like, new idea. And she's like, no, this is like often. I mean, they're both like, Keith and Farrah both will say, hey, Jason, is that what you should be working on right now?
Right.
I'm like, no, but that's where the dopamine comes from, is getting the new thing done.
I want the dope.
But, well, it's also part of like, you have these little, I bet you see this in your work, these little things that are like tapping on you that are annoying you because they're like little problems.
Yeah.
And they're not disrupting the entire company, but they're disrupting your focus. And so it's like,
100%.
Crush that, move on to the next thing. And so the problem is, though, like long-term measuring that, you probably would have been more effective just pushing through and getting the more important thing done.
Yeah. 100%.
But for me, that's my biggest challenge is like, I know what we need to do, but there's all these distractions of things that I know if I just fix this, it will solve some of that problem, my attention span.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to like books we've read that we've recommended and probably read in the past, just like trying to figure out what's important, what your priorities are, like, and getting your priorities lined up with your goals. And like, it's a whole like complex web, man, of just trying to not waste time on things that don't matter.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah. So that book back there, $100 Million Offer by Alex Ramosi. I think I gave you that. Did I?
No. I'm going to turn around and look. I don't know what the camera's going to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? I think that's the book I have still wrapped from Christmas for you at my house that I haven't given you.
Christmas presents.
So that's what you know.
Christmas
so now you know what that is. So now you know what that is. But what he talks about, which is very interesting, I don't know if it's in the book, but it's in some of his other talks, is the hierarchy of how you should make decisions on what to focus on. Mm-hmm. And the first one is doing more. So if you have a thing that's working, do more of it until you've maximized that. The next thing is then you improve what you're working on. Mm-hmm. And then after that, it is the new. And the problem is a lot of times we think the solution is the new. Okay, so I need this new process to get more clients. I need this new thing to go pitch versus like, let's just do more and turn the volume up.
100%.
And you got to have dials on those things so you can turn them up or down, right? And so that's where maybe the improving the process so you can put a dial on it. So
yeah, 100%, man. I think, well, I don't think I know. I know people get the shiny object syndrome and want to go play with new because it's new, exciting. I mean, it happens in relationships, business, no matter what industry or, aspect you look at it from. And, it's like, man, if I would just take the time to like, this is rolling. Like, just make this better. Like, just focus all my energy into making this better. I mean, that's kind of the compound effect, right? I mean, it's like simple interest and compounding interest. It's, all right, if I do this over and over and over and over and over again to improve, I'm going to improve. As opposed to improve a little bit, ooh, new thing. Then you're starting all over again. Ooh, new thing. Then you're starting all over. Like, you're never going anywhere.
Mark Cuban did this talk where, actually, no, I think it was someone who got advice from Mark Cuban did this talk. And this guy had these 10 businesses that he was pursuing. I think you've heard this one before. 10 businesses, and he said, I'm having trouble trying to push all this forward. You know, what's your answer? Yeah. And Mark's answer was very simple. It's like, okay, if you know it's going to take this much effort, you have a fixed amount of effort to get all of these businesses to where they need to be. You times that by the amount of businesses or the amount of shiny objects, and that's how much time it's going to take you. It's going to take you 10 years. But if you just take the one that's most important or has the highest likelihood of success and you apply all your effort to that, you've now shortened that time frame, which puts you in a different position to apply more resources to the next 100%. One. It's not addition, it's multiplication.
100%.
I think this is, I mean, I want to keep all this in, but let's I'm going to jump right into this. That sound good?
Yeah, let's roll.
Okay. Everyone, I want to welcome you to episode 10 of the Confessions of a Dealmaker podcast. I'm your host, Jason Godwin. I am so excited for today's guest, Jarek Thomas, JT, one of my longest and dearest friends. I would not be where I am today without his friendship, without his counsel.
Oh, man.
And that's why I wanted to have you on today, is because of your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience, and what you've been able to accomplish in your life. JT is a Florida native, believer in Jesus, prides himself on building long-lasting relationships, producing quality work, and always stepping up to a challenge. Holds a Bachelor's of Science from Illinois State University, where you played D1 football as a defensive end. Yep. Master's in Education from American College of Education. And you've had a very unique journey. You have owned several companies. You've been in the education space. You're a performance trainer. You actually train the Orlando Predators.
Yep.
You've done sports combines.
Man. Yeah.
You've done credit repair.
Yep.
You've done you're a certified loan originator.
I am. Yeah.
And you're also the operations manager for the fastest growing accounting firm in the United States.
Absolutely.
Solutions Group accounting firm, the only accounting firm in the Inc. 5000.
Okay.
So
nice. See, I didn't even know all that, but
yeah.
You know.
And I'm honored to have you here because you're one of my dearest friends, but also you're one of the wisest people I know. You know, we've had this conversation, and you and I can sit down and do this for hours because we both are very passionate about self-improvement, about growth, about reaching for what you think you're beyond what you're capable of.
Absolutely.
So,
well, thank you for having me, man. It's so refreshing because this has probably been, I don't know, 4 or 5 years in the making. I mean, I remember when you first started talking to me, I'm like, man, it'd be awesome to get us on the podcast together. And we just start talking. And I was like, yeah, man. And then, you know, we always have our phone conversations when we're riding in the car somewhere trying to transition to the next spot. And, man, like just to see what you have done in a short period of time, step out on faith, take risk, and like really go for it, man. Like it's a true testament to like this today. So I'm excited to be here and kind of go through that, man.
Well,
and you push me, so
no, I'm very grateful. You've been a part of this from the beginning because you remember when I was in my other companies and was making the hard decision on, okay, this isn't the lifestyle I want. What do I need to do? And so you and I wrestled with this together to figure out what was the best fit. And it took a lot of courage to take. You know, I was comfortable. I was making good money, but I didn't enjoy the business. Absolutely. I didn't enjoy the day to day, and to get out of that and to let that go and then build this up, it took a lot of faith, and having people like you around me to support me was all that made all the difference.
Yeah, man, I totally understand. Transition is scary, and you you kind of get in, not even in a rut, but you get on this track, and your skill sets and the things that you have. That's all like you think that you have, but at any given time, it could be taken away from you. Something could happen. You can't work there anymore. So you have to be flexible and ready to pivot at a moment's notice. So, just I think helping other people see that, it's a little bit of a passion of mine, man. As we get into this thing, you'll find out here. Here recently, I did a complete 180 in terms of what I was doing. I was a full blown teacher, had my teaching degree, had a master's, and I was like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore, and literally jumped into an industry I really knew nothing about, had no credentials for, and I'm able to go over there, and just because of the skills and the gifts God's given me, and and people like you connected me, been able to thrive. So I mean, it's just a true testament that your accolades and what you have don't really define you. It's your work ethic, it's your character, it's your integrity. All those things help you progress through life, and you pick up little skills along the way to help you do the next thing. So, yeah, man, I'm excited to be here.
I like to tell young people this. So, the degree or a certification in something, its sole purpose is to show someone you can stick with a process for an amount of time and execute on that process and complete it and see it to completion. Employers don't care about what that degree is in. No. And I think most employers don't even. If you can prove that you can do all these things without having a degree, they're all about it, because it doesn't matter. Employers want people on their team who can execute, right? And they can get things done. They can create. And I mean, you've created so many things out of thin air. And also, when thinking about this, I don't know many people who can manage as many things with as much grace as you can. I mean, I've seen you work a job, run a company, volunteer, and develop something new all at the same time without seeming chaotic. You just kind of have it all under control. If you think, I mean, like yesterday, you and I were talking on the phone. You're like, "Oh yeah, I forgot I have that business."
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's like, JT, are you actively participating in this company? Yeah, sure. What you need me to do?
I mean, it's working, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about your history and
okay.
What brought you here today. Let's talk about, where it all started.
Well, how far do you want to go back? I mean, when I was 5,
Let's start at college.
Okay. Oh, let me get I'll try not to get long-winded because I tend to go off on tangents. So, college was pretty awesome. I was able to earn a scholarship and, go. I was always that kid where I was up for a new adventure and experiencing new things. So, you took this Florida kid and, I met this coach and he's like, "Hey, you want to come up to Illinois?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've never been there before." And, straight culture shock going up there, going from, 90-degree blue sky weather to, gray every, 6 to 7 months out the year. And you got weird animals like squirrels that look like dogs and, and foxes and just weird stuff, So, I'm sure they'll say the same about us. We all are, dinosaur lizards and alligators, but, college was fun, man. I learned a lot about life. It was good to get away. Because, as a man, you kind of have to, God calls us to leave the mother and father. Typically they talk about it in the marriage, but sometimes you just got to go out there and figure life out on your own, blaze your own path. And college was that for me, man. I took some risk, got my heart broken a couple times. You go through that when, you find the girl that you like and it don't always work out. Learned about adversity and overcoming things through football and, being injured and everything a couple times throughout college. College was that microcosm where you can actually learn life in that immediate moment. What else happened? The turning point or the major event in college that happened to me that kind of set me on my path was my senior year in college. I was on track to go to the NFL. I was, goodness, what was I, like 275 running a 4.7 40. Back then, that was like blazing fast. Now you got like freaks of nature, but everything was going right. And in a moment's instance, like we talked about, I had a guy that cut blocked me, kind of pretty much dove at my legs, literally just blew my ankle in two. So it was just hanging on literally by skin. And football was over for me, man. And I'll never forget just, going from the field to the car, the events that happened, sitting on the sideline, looking back at my teammates, I realized, man, I had so much impact on them, and I had my head so far down in the hole just working that I didn't realize that I was leading these guys. Like they looked up to me and like cared about me, like just to see the look on their face, like, man, like we just lost JT. Like, I'm like, okay. And then, being carted off and people yelling, "How we love you." And I'm just like, where's all this coming from? And then just breaking down in the van, like, is it really over? And I'll never forget this part. I called my mom, and, you gotta love moms. I called her. I was like, "Mom, I just broke my ankle. I'm hurt. Football's over for me." And I love her to death. She said, "You knew you weren't going to play football forever. So like, suck it up." And it's like such a mom thing to say, like, "Okay, Mom, like, I'm going to call you back." So, hung up the phone with her, man. And then this thing right here is really what set me on my course. A calming spirit just came over me, and, like, it was cloudy and the sky opened up and like sun just came out, and God was just like, "Hey, I have something more for you. Like, this doesn't define you. Like, it's going to be okay." And literally in that moment, like all my care, all my worry just kind of melted away. And like, I'm literally in the hospital joking with the nurses, and my foot's hanging on by its skin. And they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, like, yeah, this is nothing." So, that moment in college kind of set me on my path to being the person that I am, because, life's going to throw you hardships. Life's going to throw you curveballs, and you just you got to be flexible, man. You got to be open and willing to be like, okay, well, what's next? So
I've got a few friends who spent time in the military and different special operations groups and whatnot. And one trend I've seen is, and this is similar to your experience, you have someone who's on an elite team, and you're all pursuing being the best version of yourselves. And so you are committing to pursuing greatness, not just for your own self, but because of the team around you. You don't want to let them down.
Absolutely.
And then when you get injured and you're taken away from that team, you have this tug of, I just want to get back because I want to be with those guys or that group of people. I want to contribute. I don't want to let them down. Mm-hmm. And then when you have that realization that because of the physical injury, you're not able to go back, there's a portion of you that you have to let die.
Yeah.
And most people who experience that type of hardship, that's where they get stuck. They get wrapped up in what I could have been, what I wanted to be. This was what I had in mind.
Right.
And that's where they stay. And so for the rest of their life, they'll tell people, "Well, I almost did this. Yeah. I almost did that. I was almost able to do this." And they're so connected to the thing that they almost did because it identified them that they weren't able to, shed their skin and become something new and have the courage to believe in themselves and to believe in the mission they're on. Okay, this is part of the journey. It doesn't define me. Who I am internally defines me. Let's find the next mission.
Absolutely.
And you made that switch so quickly because of this peace that you had and because of the belief that you had.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And, to this day, like I'll talk to old teammates who are younger than me, and they're like, "Man, like, how did you just switch it off like that, man? Like, other people would have been like distraught, like to your point, like people would have like, this is them. Like they know nothing else other than football. And it's like, like that can't be it. I'm always searching for like, all right, well, what more can I do? Like, pursuing like not necessarily perfection, but just wanting to do better and more. And just, I guess people would be like, oh, well, you're not content. It's like, no, I just want to be better than I was yesterday, and just always striving to like improve something. Like something can always get better.
Yeah.
No matter what situation you're in. Like, okay, let's put forward some work and let's see what can happen. So.
Yeah. You've always had a very positive attitude. When things have gone wrong for you, I mean, you've had some unfair things happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't get you down for very long.
No.
That's one place where you and I differ. Like I have to actively switch that negativity off because I get so focused on the result that I want that I have a hard time letting go of that outcome I'm trying to pursue.
Absolutely. And it's crazy because, I always say it. Well, yeah, I always say it like this, like, you have an idea, like God has a plan and you have a plan, right? So your plan is to do X, Y, and Z. Well, God may want that for you too, but he may take you on a different path. So while you're right there in grab reach of what you want, God may be like, hey man, I'm going to take you over here and I need you to learn a few more things. And it's going to be a roundabout way, but you'll find years down the line, you've already accomplished the thing that you wanted and you probably didn't even realize it.
There's a character trait in being able to have that ripped away from you and it not devastate you that separates a large majority of achievers. I mean, there's people who are very, very successful that they can't manage that.
Right.
If you look at BUDS, right? So that's the Navy SEAL training program, basically on demolition training.
Yeah.
One thing they see often is athletes, D1 athletes, college athletes, have a very hard time with the program because they've never failed at anything their whole life. They have always been top of their class educationally. They've always been performance-wise. Life is just kind of like giving them what they wanted, not because of luck, but because they had the skills to do it. Yeah. But that program is set up specifically to force you to fail. No matter how good you are, they're going to find your breaking point, and it's who are you when you meet your breaking point. What characteristics come out? What does your internal monologue look like when you hit that breaking point, when you are right there where you can reach it and it's taken from you? And when someone's doing that to you, it could be a person doing that to you, taking something from you. How do you react? That is the defining, I think one of the rarest traits in humans is the ability to accept that and not let it throw you off your course and continue on the journey.
Yeah. And it's funny, you're like, when you started talking about that, I had a talking story. So I learned how to lose early in my life in high school. Like, I went to a very good athletic high school where we made it to states my senior year, and in the state of Florida, football's like, it's kind of like Texas and California. Like football's it. Like if you make it to states, you're good because you got to beat a lot of teams.
People will still talk about that at their 20th year reunions.
Oh yeah, 100%. So, I learned how to lose in that moment, and and we didn't just lose; we lost in the toughest way, like down to the wire. So I'll never forget. It was, fourth quarter, 30 seconds on the clock, like one of those stories that you only hear on like TV or somebody 30 seconds on the clock, and we're up by like 3, I think it was. And it's fourth down, and we're fighting to get to the quarterback, and he literally throws up a Hail Mary. The darn safety bit on a pump fake or something, and the dude catches it, dives into the end zone, game's over. Like, I lost like that. As a 16, 17-year-old kid, man, to work so hard 4 years to get to that pinnacle of high school. Like, that's it. You know, there's nothing else in high school, you know, to me, that's like greater than states in a sport. And to watch it be ripped away from you, and watch like kids crying, and I was crying, and just to watch that, man, it taught me so much. Even going into college, it's like, you know what, life doesn't care like what you want. Life's not gonna always give you what you want, and when it doesn't, you got to be ready to move on and adapt, and use that as fuel for your next thing, because it doesn't define you. There, you know, like, the only thing that really defines us is our character, how we treat people, how we love people, and you know, how we operate in this space, you know, and on earth. And I don't know, man, like, I think there's a lot of lessons that, like, winning feels good, but losing really teaches you a lot of lessons that, like, humble you and just keep you like, you know what, I'm okay. Like, I can do anything. I can do this. Like, I made it through that. I can do the next thing. I made it through that, and you can just move on. So
I'm sure you've seen that famous speech that the Georgia Tech head coach has given about winning's not loyal to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a destination. It is a activity.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people in business and in life get it confused, where they think that winning is a destination, that when I get to this point, I've accomplished this.
Right.
And then when they don't, or they have these setbacks, they get discouraged, or they have a fear where they're afraid to change course, or they're afraid to let go of something and try something new. Mm-hmm. Where winning is a decision that you make every day, that you're gonna attempt to win. Right. You're gonna push yourself, no matter how you feel about it, mm-hmm. no matter how you physically feel, no matter what obstacles are in front of you. It doesn't matter. You're going to apply that effort to every situation, because it's a measurement of your character. It's a result of who you are. It's not something that you just achieve. I think people miss that.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that reminds me of a book that I've read, and I think I gave to you for one Christmas, called Who Not How.
Yes.
By Dr. Benjamin Hardy, and
right there, right next to conscientious leadership.
Yeah, so that book is awesome. And, you know, to your point, you know, looking at winning, like, what do you define as winning? You know, like, they talk about having a daily wins book, because it's real easy to always cast that vision for where you're going and where you're trying to get to. And it's constantly moving, because you have to set new goals. You have new, inspirations and things like that. And you often forget to look back and see what you actually accomplished. So, you know, one of the exercises they call you to do is to create a win book. So, like, actually, I have my win. That's what's right here. I have my win book right here, and it says all I do is win on it. So what I do is every day I have to find 3 wins that I did. And winning can be anything, man. Like, you know, like, on this day I completed a bunch of tasks. I had a game plan for something, like, just little stuff that you know, I look back a year from now and be like, whoa, look at what I actually accomplished. You know, because when you're in it, you don't realize, like this right here is a win. Like, just the fact that we were able to get together,
yeah,
you know, get a scheduled time to come in here and just talk to each other. That's a win in my book, because, you know, who knows where this is going to lead both of us. So,
yeah,
you know, like, being able to look back and appreciate the things that you're doing on a daily basis, and not getting so caught up about, like, yeah, I want to be there, and then if I'm not there, I'm not successful. And it's like, no, like, look at what you're doing on a daily basis that allows you to thrive and be successful and get you there. And before you know it, you're there, and you look back and you're like, well, man, I was there a lot quicker than I thought I would be, when I'm not focusing on just trying to get there. So, yeah, that's what this is. That's why it was sitting there. Funny that it kind of transitioned into that.
Patrick Bet-David, big fan of his content, his books. I forgot how he worded it, so I'm not going to word it right. But I believe it was actively patient. Mm-hmm. That you are focused on the mission and you're taking steps, but you're patient and present in the moment. So like Alex Hormozy talks about, if I told you 5 years from now you're going to be a millionaire, but you're not going to make anything between now and 5 years, could you do it?
Right.
And a lot of people, they can't. And it's, because they have to have that instant gratification to be able to move ahead. And so when you have a long-term goal that you want to pursue that's hard and big, you have to be willing to be patient in the moment and be present and take those small wins and say, okay, so I took steps today to get me close to where I want to be. Mm-hmm. That's what matters.
Absolutely.
I kept the first thing. I put people around me first, and I executed on the things that I said I was going to do. I lived out the character that I want to exhibit in life. And if you do that every day, you will notice that over time you get closer to that goal without even knowing it.
Absolutely.
You may not have some measurable, thing like a big deposit in your bank account or your name up on a billboard, but over time those actions compound and they start paying dividends, and all of a sudden the world starts opening up to you because you have new relationships, because people have seen you striving for years. They've seen that you have character, you commit to things, you finish things. And those, if you look at the people who are most successful, that's what they do. They execute. I mean, you look at people like, let's say, Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, right? Mm-hmm. Two tech giants. They get their teeth kicked in quarterly by shareholders with things that are going wrong. Mm-hmm. But some things that would make a normal person, I mean, look at how much Facebook lost on the metaverse, right? They're still pursuing forward, right? They're not discouraged because they know what the long-term goal is of the company. Whether you agree with that or not, that's up to you. But Absolutely. They have a goal that they're pursuing, and they're going to take steps towards that every single day. Elon with his purchase of Twitter. Everyone told him not to do it. Nobody liked it, but he believes in free speech so much, it's beyond money for him. He's doing this because he believes that people need to be able to communicate with each other. So he's unwavered no matter how much it hurts his pocketbook, no matter how much it hurts his connections, his relationships, because he believes in opening up free speech and letting people have a voice.
Yeah. That reminds me, I think I was watching it on Instagram where he was having the interview with the one guy, and the guy was asking him, don't you care about your shareholders? Like, don't you? And he paused for a moment, or actually longer than a moment. He got his thoughts together, and then he referenced The Princess Bride and was like,
give me money, give me power.
Yes.
I care not.
And he's like, I don't care. He's like, I don't care what they say. I don't care what they want. And, time over time, he's hit his mark. Yep. He's gotten his shareholders paid. So how can you not appreciate that in a person?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm down to ride with him because he don't care. He sees the mission. He sees his goal, and he's gonna go for it. That's who you would want as a leader.
Yeah.
You want somebody who's unwavering. It's like, hey, this is what it is. Oh, well, your shareholders are mad. Okay, well, I'll pull back. I won't disrupt the pond. It's okay. You want somebody who's going to trudge forward and just be like, hey, we're going to get this done. I don't care how much money I got to spend.
So I heard this recently. Perseverance is a combination of persistence and tenacity, because persistence and tenacity are not the same thing. Right. Let's say you have a rock that you need to chip away to get to a diamond, right? Tenacity is you may chip at it a few times and that doesn't work, so you try something else, you try something else, you try something else, and you don't stick with the problem. Whereas persistence is you are going to hammer down on that rock until it breaks into a diamond, right? Mm-hmm. Each situation calls for one or the other. There's times to be tenacious and times to be persistent. Yeah. But the combination of those two is perseverance, and it's utilizing both tools to pursue that goal, so that you continue to be tenacious and knock your to-do list out, execute on your goals, and not let the hardship dissuade you from moving forward, because that's where most people stop, is when things get hard, or they're hard enough for a long enough period of time that they think the universe is telling them something. They think that, well, I must not be meant to do this.
Right.
This isn't for me. When we're talking to business owners that want to exit, we break them down into 3 categories. The first category is frustrated, right? They're frustrated with the situation in their company. It's usually because they've hit a leadership and management threshold that they can't get beyond. And so the company's kind of outgrown them, no matter how small or big. That's the frustrated category. The forced category, there's been some unfortunate circumstances forcing them to sell, whether that's monetary, if that's a divorce, if that's health. There's some reason that's forcing them to sell. And then the third category is focused. They're making a focused decision to sell their company, and they're going to maximize their company because they're putting the building blocks in place. They have time on their side.
Right.
The difference in bridging between the 3 is this persistence and tenacity, perseverance, and working through those hardships, because you can get stuck at the frustrated part if you don't grow yourself to become a better leader and manager of your company, and putting those building blocks together of making operating systems and processes. That's what breaks you through to the next stage of revenue,
Absolutely.
the next break point. People who don't begin with the end in mind and make a plan end up cornered by life, and that's when they become forced to make a decision, because they haven't put the stop gaps in place to if there is a problem that comes up, there's no parachute packed for that. And then the last category, the ones who end up selling their companies for the most and make the most profit, are the focused, who are making long-term decisions and plans. And so when they were down here in this, making $100,000 in gross revenue and barely making payroll, they made decisions on, this is the vision for my life and this is what I want. I'm going to go through the hills and valleys of the journey of this process of growing this company. I'm going to grow myself and pursue betterment, pursue greatness, pursue growth, because I know it's going to affect all the people around me and our clients and our customers who we serve. And having that greater principle and focus, those are the ones who bridge the gap between being frustrated to being focused.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you're spot on, man. I mean, I guess this is a good segue into, kind of what I do on a daily basis. So I work as an operations manager for an accounting firm, but it's unique, man, because you don't typically have operations managers in a industry like that. Shout out to Solutions Group Accounting Firm, my awesome partners, Robert Cruz and Nathan Green. It's just, like a lot of business owners don't realize how much, not necessarily admin work, but how like boots on the ground you have to be, especially in the beginning stages as you're ramping up and scaling it. To get it. And then sometimes as it's rolling, when the train gets rolling, you have to be able to take a step back to detach yourself from everything to see where you can improve and make better, to your point, be able to bridge over to the next place. Cause ultimately, like every business has an endpoint. You're either going to close the business or you're going to sell the business. Like, in my mind, there's no other, no other place you can go with it. You're either going to step away and let somebody else do it, or you're just going to let the idea die. And operations definitely plays a big part of that. And, how I even got into all of this was, like I learned operations and stuff just from, my daily walk in life, from being structured in football to, being a teacher and having to have a plan and being, before the kids get there, you have to have a structured plan for that day, or else the kids are going to, run around rampant and you're not going to gain their respect. To now I'm able to harness all of these skills to learn how to put systems and processes in place so that a company ultimately can function without it, not necessarily its leader, but like to be able to be self-sufficient. And that's ultimately where you want to get to with operations and things, to where, all of these mundane tasks that kind of fall through the wayside that really kind of dictates your company's character and culture. If you have somebody, doing that on a daily basis and they get burnt out or the ball drops, then that just makes your company look bad. But to be able to, have systems, processes, development in place to continue to progress forward, that's how you get to that end point where, the owners are able to make strategic moves to be able to be like, you know what, at this point, we're going to sell it. I want to sell it to this type of person. They're going to take care of the company. I'm going to do this. And they have a plan. So.
And you were also able to develop this because you were running companies while you were while you had a full-time job. So you learned automations, you learned creating processes. And I had this conversation with someone yesterday or day before yesterday. I can't remember who it was. Mm-hmm. Some people are just process-minded. Yeah. You have the ability to see the whole chessboard at once and be able to plan your moves and know what pieces need to go where. Right. And when we say these words, systems and processes, procedures, SOPs, they're kind of they don't carry a lot of weight because people don't know. They don't know until you've been in a big company and you have a lot of moving pieces and you have to have very complex long-term projects. People do not understand what infrastructure you have to build to do that efficiently. Like there's two sides of the spectrum. When a business that has more than one employee, you have a hub and spoke model, which is the owner is the hub or the leader is the hub, and everything goes in and through them. So a decision, review of a task, review of an output for a client, it all has to go through the founder, owner, leader, whoever that person is.
Right.
Hub and spoke. Very inefficient because now the choke point is that hub. Mm-hmm. The other side of that is having something completely decentralized where you have pods of teams that can make decisions, but then there are criteria for when that decision is escalated up the chain of command, right? So it's decentralized. You have a system so that when this comes up, now this is escalated to this team, and when it gets escalated to the next team, all the way when it finally reaches the owner, it's only the things that only the owner, founder, leader has to make decisions on. So what happens then? They can now maximize their output of creativity, invention, ideation, relationships, which is what drives the business. Yep. While the functions of the company, the execution is done by the team and the pods that have decided, that's what they're passionate about. Yeah. We started working through have you done Working Genius?
I have not.
Okay. Without getting into that, the more we do testing personality-wise, so Jacob Hoyer, shout out to Jacob, Clarity Navigator, we've done a lot of work with this looking at just personality in general. And it seems that no matter what test we're using, the results are very similar. And so people have dispositions they lean towards of what their preference is and what they're better at. For example, like tenacity is not my thing. You would think I'm a tenacious person because not very few people can outwork me. I can grind all day. Yeah. But that's not tenacity. Tenacity is the ability to execute on a bunch of little tasks. Mm-hmm. Like we talked about earlier, I like the big, hard, long-term projects. That's more where I want to dive into something. I don't want to work on a bunch of little things. But there's people who love that, and they just want to go ahead and crush a to-do list.
Taskmasters.
Yeah, and they're like, they love like just the feeling of hitting that completed button on Asana. Just gives them dopamine, right? Where I don't open Asana sometimes for 2 days because I'm like, I have this big important thing I need to do. Yeah. So building a team with all of these different personalities. I heard this thing yesterday, and I'm going to misquote it, but the CIA says there's 4 personality types you have to have in each team. The first one, I believe, was lion, fox, bear, and I forgot what the other one was. But each one of those is a different set of personality traits. You have someone who's great at ideation, someone who's great at relationships, someone who's great at execution, and someone who's great at aligning the team. Yep. Every different personality tool and leadership, educational tool has different definitions for this and how they categorize things. But all a company is, when you boil it down, is a set of people using processes to leverage assets to serve a customer. Yep. That's all it is.
100%. Man, as you were talking, so many ideas and thoughts and things that I've acquired over the years of reading and stuff came came to mind, but referring back to your hub and spoke model. So like that reminds me of where I was at, and probably other people, like in terms of, and this is just the industry I'm speaking on because I was in it, is like a personal trainer, right? So a personal trainer is like a hub and spoke, because no matter what, like that person is the end all be all. So the trainer makes relationships with the clients. Clients are there for the trainer. As soon as you start to try to spread and venture out to other people, well, they don't want to work with that person because they've established a relationship with you, and, they like your energy and everything like that. So that model is really difficult to expand upon because you're the end all be all. You can only handle so many clients. You can only train so many hours. It's very hard to scale that. And then when you were talking about having, everything working up the chain of command, that reminds me of the book Extreme Ownership, where he talks about, when Jocko Willink talks about decentralized command. And I'll never forget, back when I was a teacher, I actually read the book and I was like, you know what? I wonder if I can implement this. So I was a strength and conditioning coach. So in my weight room, I had 10 platforms. And what I would do is I'm like, okay, I need to find a leader for each of these platforms. So, kids come in, they build their own little social groups, and each little group works out with each other each day. Well, I need to find a leader in each of those groups who I can give a briefing to, give the instructions for the day, and they lead the team. And as I started to implement it, man, it was like awesome to see how the kids took ownership of it, but they would come in, they knew exactly what to do. Their leader of their team would say, all right, here's what we got today. They would make sure they were doing everything right. And it gave me the freedom to walk around and be able to observe and correct as needed, as opposed to, if I was doing all the work, I'd have to go to each station. I'm like, all right, guys, we're going to do this. It just takes too much time and it's not scalable. So, in those two instances, the one where I did decentralized command was way more effective because I put the responsibility onto the person. They cherished that responsibility and they ran with it. And that's really how, I think that's the start of like really understanding how to scale a business and get people to do what they're doing best. Kind of like what you were talking about, the lion, the bear, the fox. And
I'll have to go back and find that again.
Finding the right people to put in the right seats. And, there's tons of books that talk about it. And, and it's true, because if you can get the person that loves doing that and like takes ownership of it, then that's just one less thing that you have to worry about, because they're going to thrive in that. They want to do a good job, as opposed to you having to micromanage each task of the day. And before you know it, you have decision fatigue and you're just wiped out by the end of the day.
There's three things that come to mind. So the fruit of that for you was you organically grew a huge competitive weight lifting team at the school.
Yeah.
I mean, and very competitive too. Because if you brought the group of students into the decision-making process, they took ownership, and that extended into their social circles. They said, well, I now want to better myself, become stronger, better, faster. And I want to now compete.
Yeah.
Because they bought into that. And you had a huge amount of girl weightlifters too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that was an awesome experience, man. Just talking about it briefly, I remember coming in and with the girls weightlifting program at that time, I think I only had like 12 girls that, a few of them did it the previous year, but, a lot of them I pulled from my weightlifting class just from being around them each day. And it was just awesome how that transitioned. And when you're in it, you don't realize what you do. At least I don't realize that it's happening as I'm in it. So, 12 turned into 24, 24 turned into 40, 40 turned into 80 girls by the time, I had departed from the high school. And it was just interesting because the girls take ownership in it. They come in and they push the other girls and they tell them, hey, like, you can do this. And they give them encouragement. And I mean, but that's what all the kids looking for, let alone anybody. they're looking for somebody to pour into them, encourage them, and
see value too.
Yeah,
See that they're valuable enough and they have
absolutely.
the resources to do it and believe in them.
Absolutely. So, I mean, that was an awesome experience for me just to, you know, be able to be a part of those teams developing on their own, man. And I don't know, like, yeah.
Yeah. Like, here's the struggle that I have faced, and I'm sure many business owners are going to relate to. You start growing a company, and as the company grows, you start realizing the weaknesses in your processes and procedures. And most of them live in your head because you're the one creating it. So every business has usually a visionary at the top, the one who's the idea person. Then you have a integrator who's executing on those ideas. Sometimes they're the same person, but when companies get big enough, you typically have a visionary and integrator. If someone wants to read one book on business growth and structuring, I always recommend Traction, their EOS process.
Yep.
I think it does the best job at encompassing probably 30 other books, but visionary at the top, integrator down the line. So if you're the visionary, you have all the ideas, and now all the processes live within you. Your team is coming to you to get those processes.
Right.
The challenge is when you start growing and you're doing the executing, the providing too of the output for the service, you have to stop doing the output to build the process.
Right.
And then you get stuck in this loop of like, we cannot grow until I build this process. I cannot build this process because I have to produce revenue. We have to produce revenue because we have to pay for operations. We can't systematize operations because we haven't stopped build processes. We can't stop build processes because we have to get revenue. So most people get stuck in this loop of that. And I mean, I deal with it too. Since we have a licensed industry, there's certain things that I have to do because I'm licensed. The way out of that is knowing this up front and spending the time before you get too big to build these out.
Absolutely.
And then make a list of the things every day that people come to you that they need your approval for, or they need your advice on, or things you're having to correct. And that's what you need to start systematizing first. Which one comes up the most and has the highest value? Play whack-a-mole, knock that one out. Go to the next one, go to the next one, go to the next one. And it sounds like that's what being an operations manager is all about.
100%. I almost felt like you were like standing next to me each and every day as you explained. It's like, man, are you watching me do work every day? How'd you know all that? The thing is, the reason why consulting businesses is so easy is they're all the same. It doesn't 100%.
matter what industry you're in. If you're an underwater basket weaving class company, or if you're building aerospace products, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. You're taking an idea that's being implemented by people who are using systems and processes to leverage assets to produce an output. It doesn't matter what business you're in. It's all the same. That's
it. Yeah, man. I mean, you're spot on. Currently what I'm doing is I'm trying to duplicate myself. So my role at the firm, I'm kind of like a Swiss Army knife as well, where I have the ability to implement systems, processes, and and execute. I'm an executor. But I also have the ability to communicate and build relationships. So to your point, I'm on the other side generating revenue as well, because I'm able to go out, talk to people like, hey man, like, you know, let me help you solve your problem, while still being in the thick of it. Like yesterday, for example, we had a AC unit go out. I had to coordinate the AC repair guy on where he needed to go, where everything was at, you know, all of that stuff, while we had a shipment come in and we had 20 chairs that we needed to repair. So I, you know, repaired the chairs, and, you know, then you switch and I'm back to sales. So, I mean, you're spot on. And the only way that I can get out of that is by duplicating myself and taking somebody and be like, okay, go through all my processes, figure out what I can automate that really doesn't need my attention and approval. Finding somebody who can do tasks and that actually love doing the task, so that, you know, they don't get burnt out with it, and just empowering people so that, you know, as you as I built this person up, I'm able to step away and now do something that's more beneficial to the entire, cog of the machine.
Yeah. And I want to also highlight the reason you're doing this is not because you want to do less work.
Right. Absolutely.
It's because the people who are benefiting from the service will
Mm-hmm.
have a better experience.
Absolutely.
And then the people who are executing on that service will be able to live more into their calling and have a better experience.
Absolutely.
Like one of the biggest gifts you can give someone is to give them a job where they feel like they're able to live out who they're called to be.
100%.
Like Jacob Hoyer leads this program called Unique, and it was I think you remember because when I went through it, and what it does is it highlights your tendencies and the things that you are naturally drawn to. Mm-hmm. And I stress to anyone who doesn't know what you want to do with your life, it's so valuable to go through some process like that to figure out what you are best suited for, and then start leaning into that. Because you're going to have, and within your team too, because you're going to find out there's people who are really good at a thing that you hate to do.
Absolutely.
And they will do that and they feel like they're living their best life.
Yep.
There's things I absolutely hate doing that Farrah loves to do.
Yeah.
There's things I hate doing that Keith loves to do.
Yeah.
There's things that Keith hates doing that I probably love to do. And so building that orchestra of people that have different talents and abilities is how you're going to be able to produce a better result for your client, be more profitable. Because if your organization is inefficient because people are coming to you for questions or concerns, or they're not sure on how to execute on a process, it's less profitable.
Yep.
Every time.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. Thinking about that, and again, I talk in stories. So, I was a part of this business, and in my head, it was successful. But where it kind of went off the rails was, I think businesses get caught up in, generating revenue versus processes. So, like right now in our social society, we got everybody that's marketing. Well, you get all these people, you push them into this funnel, and if you don't have the infrastructure and the people in place to receive all them people, well, the only thing that's going to happen is they'll come in, they'll be like, well, this wasn't what I thought it was. This sucks. And they're going to leave anyways. And now you have a bad reputation because, you were marketing one thing, you didn't deliver on what you said, and your whole reputation's tarnished. So, if I could give any advice to any business owner listening or anything, take some time, and it may not be them. They may not be the person to understand the operations and the process, but find somebody, if it's not you, that can help you work through processes. And once you figure out, the mainframe of the process, like, the bare bones of it, just continue to develop it and just stick with it and develop and improve and develop and improve until the process is so efficient that it doesn't require your input and that it's running on its own. Once that happens, it's easy to take somebody who has a passion for something and plug them in, and then it's running. And then, okay, now here's another process I need. Let me find somebody. Oh, you like doing this? Plug you in. And you'll find that your company will scale exponentially just by taking the time and focusing on the operations, so that it doesn't need you. It doesn't need your constant hand on it or your micromanagement of it. It's just, okay, cool. Person comes in, these steps happen. Okay, once these steps are done, this happens. And then it's real easy to start measuring performance and efficiencies and how fast you're going through your process. And ultimately, it gets you to where you want, because with all of those things happening, the client gets what they want. And that's what you want at the end of the day. You want the client to be happy. You want the client to receive excellent service, so that A, they're paying you for your services, but B, they're going to go out and run their mouth to everybody they can about how awesome of an experience and service that you provided to them, all because you took the time to make sure that they were handled from point A to point B.
Well, here's the fruit of that. So you're the fastest growing accounting firm in the country, the only one in the Inc. 5000. What's your marketing budget?
0.
Exactly. You do zero marketing.
Yeah.
Besides a website update every now and then.
Yeah, we do zero. So, and that's, I'm just a part of it. I have to give much credit to our both of our partners, you know, and they help me kind of figure out what my strong suit and where I stand at, is like you were talking about figuring out, you know, going through Unique. You know, I wasn't fortunate enough to go through that yet, but, you know, because of who our partners are at the accounting firm, man, they've really challenged me. They put me in places where I felt uncomfortable at times, but through all that, I figured out exactly what I thrive at, what I enjoy doing, and they give me the ability to just go full speed ahead at it, man. And, you know, I'm able to come alongside of them and help them reach their goals and dreams and visions and execute it for them. You know, like they both are visionaries in their own way. And, you know, you got me here in the middle. I'm like, all right, you want to do that? All right, well, if we're doing that, we got to do X, Y, and Z so that, you know, I connect the dots. I'm the integrator.
Yeah.
You know, in reference to traction, I'm that integrator who's like, okay, you want to do this, this, and this. All right, let me see what we got. All right, man, we're going to need this, this, and that. We don't have those yet. All right, let's makeshift it until we can figure it out. And it's been awesome, man. We service all types of clients from mom and pop startups to multi-million-dollar companies. And, you know, to your point, all of them have the same problems, and you try to help them work through it and figure it out. Some receive it, some don't. Some are kind of stuck in their ways, and that's okay. But as I'm just working and seeing the different companies, it's the same theme all the time, man. Like they start off, they get some revenue. The ones that figure it out that, you know, hey, the money's in the referrals and the service that you provide, they thrive. The ones that throw a bunch of money at marketing, you know, they usually have a hard time because, you know, when the marketing's not working, you're still spending money, but you're not getting the revenue to match the marketing that you're spending. So they usually have a tough time trying to, you know, figure that portion out. And really it's simple, man. You provide an excellent service, you take care of the client, and the client will take care of you.
Could you hand me that book back there?
Sure. Which one?
You versus Google. So I want to give a shout out to Solutions 8. They are a Google Ads agency, but this book taught me two things. There's nothing worse than throwing good money at a bad offer. And there's nothing that will break your business faster than throwing traffic to a bad business model.
Absolutely. And
so you can turn the dial up as high as you want on PPC, on direct marketing, direct outreach.
100%.
You will find out that your offer is the issue and that your business model has issues. And so before you start investing in this stuff, which is why we're not running, I mean, we're pretty well versed in Google Ads, but we're not running Google Ads because we need to get everything else squared away first.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I always tell clients when we're making decisions on how to grow the business, how to scale the business, or how to plan for an exit, I always say, keep a piece of paper by you. Make a list of everything you're doing that day. And then you have to make one of 4 decisions for that task every day. Look at that list of tasks at the end of the week. Okay. Can I automate it?
Yep.
Can I delegate it? Or can I eliminate it? If I cannot do one of those 3, then I have to do it myself. And if I have to do it myself, then my next most important role is become a recruiter and recruit someone who can either automate, delegate, or eliminate those tasks.
100%, man.
Because that's how you create that operational efficiency, remove that operational drag, is automation, delegation, elimination. Yep. You're actually the reason why we got into automation. I remember you were telling me about automation, and I was like, what is this? What shiny thing is JT chasing now? This was probably four years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And when I discovered Zapier, I was like, okay, I guess another subscription I got to pay every month.
Yep.
We automate around 2,000 tasks a month through Zapier now, and we use High Level as our CRM.
Yep.
I don't even know how we have around 170 automations running in High Level now, and approximately, and that's something as simple as when someone fills out a contact form and the phone number is bad, it sends them an email and letting them know we have a bad phone number. Can they reply with the phone number? And then ChatGPT analyzes the reply and then puts the phone number in the right spot, right?
Yeah.
And so what happens then is I don't have to write an email now whenever we get an automated text message that kicks back because there's a failure. And a lot of times someone types the wrong number in, right?
Yeah.
Or the country code was wrong. And then we fix that problem. Little things like that. And we decrease that operational drag so that we can spend more time serving the client. It's not because we want to do less things. We're still here, I wouldn't say 24/7, but a lot more than we probably should be.
Right.
Because we want the client to win. And the way we do that is we have to become better. And the way we do that is become faster, stronger, better.
Yep.
And we do that by removing things we don't need to do, automating what we can, and finding people who can execute on the things that we shouldn't be doing.
Absolutely. And, just as you were talking about, the different tools and stuff, man, like anybody listening, I would highly recommend just start tinkering with different apps and stuff like Zapier, Go High Level, Asana, Monday.com. Like there's so many tools out there that will allow you to just be so much more efficient. So you don't have to do everything.
Right.
And if you don't have to do everything, you can focus on the things that matter most. To your point again, the client. The client is what matters. The client experience and them receiving what they pay for, but a little bit more than that, just giving them what they need. Like people are out here searching for answers and looking for help because there's no possible way they can know everything.
Right.
And by having a solid system in place, you're able to provide that to them. And then, it's super easy for somebody to, like the referral, like getting a referral is like gold. So, it's warm. You don't have to worry about convincing them. The person who referred them already did all the work for you. All you have to do is just slam dunk it.
Right. And execute on what you said you're going to do.
Exactly. So like by building that up, like I think that, hand over fist is more valuable than trying to throw money at a bunch of ads and trying to figure that stuff out. You're
never going to acquire a customer as efficiently through marketing as you will through referrals.
Absolutely.
The only downside to referrals is they're not predictable. You can't put a dial on that and turn it up or turn it down. So I think it's a both and. I think you have to leverage marketing when you need to and have it on a dial so if I invest $1,000 here, it's going to produce a client. Like for every $1,000, I'm going to get one client.
Absolutely.
And that's the hard. Whenever we talk to clients about marketing, that's the hardest thing for them is they're so used to referrals and people who just walk in the door, like it costs them nothing to acquire a client. Well, if you want to scale, you're going to have to start throttling some money into that. It's not going to be as profitable.
Yeah. Well, you just redirect the money somewhere else as opposed to paying for marketing. You're paying for your operations.
Yeah.
And, I think by pouring the money into your operations, you can predict a lot better because, you can see how, like you can measure performance because you can see how fast the client's getting through your system. You can make sure that at every stop point or every checkpoint, they're receiving what they said. You can follow up with a client. You can send a survey. There's so many things you can do to gather data to be able to make a conscious decision on your next move.
Yeah. And, I completely lost that thought where I was going with that. So one of the things we tell clients too is, if they're buying a business particularly, or if they're want to sell in the next few years, the easiest thing to delegate is payroll and accounting.
Oh, 100%.
If you're doing your own, I'll give you an example, right? So Robert and I had this conversation about 6 months ago. I had we're paying QuickBooks payroll. which is around, I'm not going to talk numbers, but
Yeah,
under $200 a month.
for sure.
And for our size company, well, to process the payroll. Well, when I went to finally ask the question on, okay, how much is it going to be to do payroll? And I looked at, okay, so I'm doing it. Well, not me. Farrah's doing it for us, and she's spending this time on it. And then when a problem comes up, we still have to deal with the IRS, and we pay this much a month.
Yep.
Or I can pay a firm to do it, and when the problem comes up, they deal with it, and all we have to do is email over our payroll summary each week.
Yep.
So if you want to delegate something easy,
Oh yeah.
Same with bookkeeping. I can sit there and do bookkeeping for an hour a week, or I can just like take that money and invest it in growing the company by taking that off my plate. I remember I remember what my point was earlier. So we don't give tax advice, but one of the questions that comes up is for add backs, right? Where to invest money to grow a company so that's more valuable. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we see owners who are using 179 deductions. They're buying assets like new vehicles every 2 years so they pay less taxes.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But if you invested in people, you have the same tax. You're still investing the money.
Yep.
And you're lowering your tax burden.
Mm-hmm.
But your company's going to grow faster, which is going to then produce more income versus that asset. You buy a truck or you buy an SUV or a piece of equipment, unless you absolutely need it, you're doing it to just defer taxes. You've spent the money, and that asset is going to be worth less in 2 years than what you paid for it. Yep. But if you invest in hiring and growing your company, growing your operations or your team, that's going to be worth more than what you paid for. It's going to appreciate over time, and it's going to pay you more dividends. And so having that, be willing to take the delayed gratification. Do you want to make $1 million in 5 years, or do you want to make $50,000 a year now? Yeah. So in order to do that, you have to make these type of investments, capital-wise, people-wise, so that you can grow your company in the future. You have to, instead of buying a new widget, invest in growing a team, invest in growing your processes, because that will pay you more money in the long run and help grow the company faster.
I mean, you're absolutely correct. You wouldn't be surprised, but like, I think social media is good, but social media has a lot of not even misinformation. They don't give all the information. So, a lot of times in the accounting firm, we'll have new clients come on board, and they're like, oh, well, I could do the Augusta rule. I can do the 179 deduction. I can do all this and that. And they don't understand there's tons of tax law and rules and requirements for you to even qualify for that, let alone, just, you got a W-2 and, you have a little side Etsy business and you want to take, you want to do a section 179. Well, that don't necessarily make sense, to the IRS. So you end up putting yourself in a worse situation trying to implement all these different tax strategies without knowing. So to your point, hiring a tax professional who's versed in this, yeah, you may not get the answer that you want to hear, but you'll at least get some guidance from someone who understands the tax law, can implement different strategies, and you grow with them. Like, I look at like an accountant like a wise advisor, like when you need some guidance on something, you have this resource that has an infinite amount of knowledge in terms of how you should spend this money to lower your tax liability and help your business grow. We do tons of business consulting. We help tons of clients where, we give out free advice, just trying to help them get on the right track. Because, us charging for, a simple consultation, that does us no good. Like, we're here to help the clients. And, if they receive something off social media and they go out here and mess themselves up, I've been victim to it. And, you realize, like, crap, that's not what I needed. By having somebody who's knowledgeable in it just helps you grow and expand that much more quicker.
Well, and that wisdom comes from working with thousands and thousands of small to medium-sized businesses. Yep. And when you work with small and medium-sized businesses, you see which problems come up. You see that this situation happens over and over again. The answer is very simple. Yeah, I'll tell you this story real quick. I don't know if I ever told you the story. So I knew Robert for probably a few months. And when we decided to like, okay, this is who I want to move my accounting to. I'd been through 7 accountants in however many years, right?
Yeah.
And out of all those accountants, and I sat down and talked tax strategy with, Robert was the first one that offered something that was so simple and worked for our strategy that I don't know why no other accountant ever offers a QBID, right? I had always taken a smaller salary because we, pay less in payroll taxes.
Yep.
But had no idea how that affected the QBI.
Yep.
And then how that affected my overall tax rate. And then also leveraging how that prevented how much I was going to leverage on my 401k. And so then like refocusing the strategy, 2 years later, we're not paying any more in taxes, but we're able to put more money in the right places so that that's growing too. So we're now able to leverage that in a new way that I've talked to, tons of accountants and never got that advice. And it was simple and clear and concise. And that's why we point so many clients towards Solutions Group, why we say, okay, and we see it all the time. A client says, yep, I want to sell my business. Let's go. And then we're stuck. We're stuck for months because the accountant is the choke point. I had accountant, I'm not going to throw them under the bus, but they're in Volusia County. We had a client came to us and said, we want to sell. So they did an email introduction to the accountant, crickets. They never replied to the email. I finally called the accountant on the phone and they're like, you know what? And all I needed, I said, need the 3 years of tax return copies. The client doesn't have them. Can you send them over to me? On the phone, the owner of the accounting firm says, I could probably do that in about 2 weeks. All you got to do is drop him an email and an attachment, email him over. He said, yeah, I can get that in 2 weeks. And it was no joke, about 2 weeks before he sent them to me.
Wow.
And come to find out, they have boxes of paper files in their office. Oh, no. They have to literally go through the paper files to find them.
Yeah. And
it blew my mind. And so often we end up where we're telling the client, like, if you want to sell this company, you're going to have to fire your accountant, I'm sorry, or fire your attorney, but most of the time it's fire your accountant because they're what's killing your business. You're late every year in your taxes. You're 2 years behind. You keep filing extensions. You keep paying interest. Yeah. This is not done right. We see, like, with the same accountant we saw, this person had a business where they made a product that they then rented out. And they were putting the development of assets inside of cost of goods versus putting it as a depreciable item because they own the asset. They weren't selling it. They held the asset and they rented it out.
Right.
And the accountant had been doing, so now we're like, okay, we need to recast this and show the depreciation.
Yeah, you have to amend all those tax returns to make sure that it accounts for it.
Because if we have to go put this in front of an SBA lender, SBA lender is going to pitch that and say, nope, can't touch that. Like we can't add back that $200,000 a year in development cost because it's in COGS. You can't do that.
Yep.
And so you have to tell the client, all right, well, if you want to sell, you got to fire the accountant.
Yeah, and it's tough for some people, some business owners, because their accountants are like they're sacred. So like, oh, I've been with this accountant for like 5 years, and it's like, all right, well, like, are you progressing? Are they helping you save taxes? Are you developing any new strategies to help you grow even more? And not bashing accountants, but a lot of them don't have the infrastructure in place, because like, for lack of a better word, they're like into numbers and they're not.
It's their personality. It's what they're not as entrepreneurial and operational as they are. They're very good at numbers.
Right. So they're not implementing paperless systems. They're not implementing things in place to make them run more efficient. As soon as you said, he had to go through boxes. I'm like, that's crazy. Here.
Could you imagine if they had an audit?
Oh my goodness. Well, this paper right here, the roaches kind of like disintegrated it. I don't know what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
But that's what I love about Solutions Group is we're very technology driven. We're always trying to improve. I mean, literally all of our
client portal is awesome.
Yeah, we have a client portal where we're able to exchange documents securely. All of our tax returns, 90% of them are are all digital, so we're able to go into our systems, pull it down, do whatever we need to do so that we can serve the client better. And, because of that, I think, like I always tell people, we're like the bad news bears of accounting because, we're like literally I wear polos all day and we're in jeans. We're not in like ties and suits and all that. Like we meet the people.
And you have personalities. Well,
right.
I mean, Nate's got a lot of personality.
Yeah, he does, man. I love him to death.
Oh yeah, I love both. But those two are some of the most are probably the most dynamic entrepreneurs I know, and together they're a deadly combination because
Absolutely.
they both are able to execute on such a high level.
Yep.
I mean, Robert gets so much done in a day. I feel like I'm every time I talk to him, I'm like, I can't keep up.
Yeah, and he's so smart in terms of just his tax knowledge and just how everything works. It's
in
just,
business too, not just tax. I mean, Robert is so
100%.
sharp and put together, and Nate is he's got so many ideas.
And he's the visionary, and he's the driving force and
momentum.
Yes,
Nate. If there's one word to describe Nate, I would say it's momentum.
Absolutely,
because he is from sun up to sundown, 100 miles an hour.
Yep.
There, you cannot stop him. You cannot slow him down.
Nope.
Because you share an office with you still share an office with him.
So now that we moved into our new location, I'm kind of in the main area, but like I'm always in there, and we're always like, like I'm his governor, right? So like he'll be running like, all right, JT, we're gonna do that. I'm like, all right. So then the operations manager and me, we'll have this big dry erase board or the sketch board. And I just start like, he'll tell me his idea and I'm start sketching and putting things together. And before you know it, we spent like an hour, like really diving into an idea and figuring out how it can work. So like we balance each other real well because I can meet his energy, but I'm able to be like, okay, man, well, what about this? And okay, this. And like, we kind of just feed off of each other. So it's pretty awesome. Just, how we've been able to develop stuff. He tells me, hey, I need this done. I'm able to execute it. And, we go back to the drawing board, figure out how to adjust it and move forward so that we can improve and get better.
And that's why we keep sending you as clients, because we know they're going to be taken care of. And it's funny. Sometimes I feel like I talk to Robert more in a week than I do my wife. And I told him on the way into work this morning, I got a client to send him because we have an issue that we need to fix that the previous accountant cannot fix. Yep. And so it's hand them off and put them in good hands.
Yeah, and we have an entire team. We have we have a bookkeeping team. We have a tax team. There's multiple people.
Payroll, sales tax.
Yeah, we have a payroll, sales
filings,
tax. Everything.
Annual filings with the state.
Yep. And part of my role there, outside of just operations manager is client management, just making sure, because the biggest complaint that most business owners and people have with accountants is they don't communicate, right? Like they get busy.
100%.
They're stuck in the weeds. They can't pull their head up enough to communicate with you and still do what they need to do. So, having a person like me who can call the client, like, hey, how's it going today? Like, what do you need? Like, what question do you need answered? And I'll go get it for them. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the owners. They just want the question answered, So
because that question is probably a stressor for them.
Absolutely. So what I have the ability to do is like, all right, hey, let me get this taken care of for you right now. So, I go utilize our resources and come back with an answer. They're like, oh man, thank you so much. Like they're so appreciative after you get their answer, and they send you like 10 clients, 10 referrals. And it's like, all you had to do is just communicate with them. And most of the time the question's a simple question or a simple answer. Mm-hmm. It just takes time. Sometimes it sometimes takes a little time to, gather the information real quick to get it to them.
And now that's morphed into not just accounting.
Yes.
But wealth management. You have a wealth management arm as well.
Yes. So we also, not only are we Solutions Group Accounting, but inside in the firm, we have wealth management as well as mortgage. And what it allows us to do is, as a client comes in, the natural flow of the conversation is, hey, how can I save on my taxes? Well, we're going to implement some different wealth management strategies that require a financial advisor. Well, lucky for you, we walk downstairs, literally, talk to our financial advisors, connect you with them, and the handoff is just so seamless because we all work in the same firm. Like
You can strategize together. You can
Yep.
have a unified front on what's best for the client.
And then where the mortgage arm comes into play is, we're dealing with entrepreneurs and business owners. To your point earlier, if, you have, you're not showing enough income, it's going to be really hard for you to get a mortgage. So what we're able to do is be able to handle our clients in a way where we can get their books correct, get it to where like, hey, you need to be paying yourself a little bit more salary, adjust it accordingly, get their payroll right, and then be able to execute a mortgage for them all in-house. So
Right.
They don't have to go anywhere else. They don't have to deal with anybody else. I, myself, and a couple other people in the firm are licensed mortgage loan originators. So like, we're just, I just like, I love being there because I just get to learn so much and help our clients on so many fronts. And it's a step. It's, you don't get it all at once. It's a stair step. So like, once we get one thing taken care of for you, you move on to the next. And then once, you've accessed that level of enlightenment, you go on to the next, man. And it's awesome to see a client go through the entire process and just thrive.
Well, we've sold several companies for clients of Solutions Group, and the theme is always been they're well put together, the books are in order, and the business is thriving. I mean, I don't think I've seen a business yet that wasn't thriving that was a client of yours.
Yeah.
I think that speaks to the service you provide because you're taking that burden off of the client, allowing them to do what they do best, which is run their business, and also giving them advice that comes from the sum of all your experiences working with thousands of clients across the not only the country, but you have some international clients too.
Yeah, we have clients as far as New Zealand. We have quite a few clients in Hawaii. Goodness, where else? Philippines. So like we work with clients all over, depending on their tax situation and stuff. And it's just awesome because every situation, warrants like new information that you have to gather and learn and stuff like that. And we don't really shy away from that. We really pride ourselves on connecting. So even if we don't have the answer or we're not the resource, we are really good about connecting you with people. Like we have some awesome affiliate partners. One that comes to mind is Gerard Grant. He's one of our business attorneys. He does trust, estate planning and all of that. And we refer to him all the time because he's just such an awesome person and he matches our values and everything that, like I sent him 2 or 3 clients the other day, that I literally just brought in, and they're like, yeah, I'm trying to get a trust set up, I'm trying to do all these things. I'm like, hey, that's not our strong suit, but hey, let me make sure you're in good hands. I'm going to connect you with this person. And he takes just as good a care of them as we do with his clients. And it's just, by being able to feed those others around you, man, it just makes you that much more dynamic and successful and, just helping the client really with what they need.
The rising tide raises all ships. I know there are several times I've had a client in front of me that had a question. I picked the phone up and said, let's find out, and then call Robert. Yep. Right. And Robert's in the same. Robert's had clients in front of him, and Nate has where they want to sell and pick the phone up. Curtis too.
Absolutely.
Curtis and Mike Pfister have done the same thing when they have clients, and they know that goes both ways. That
yep.
I will pick the phone up if anyone's going to ask. I have no problem asking a question. We'll call and try to get that information. But yeah, it goes both ways. I'm more than happy when they call me and I can provide value to the client because we know rising tide raises all ships. Both companies are benefited and the client's benefited, which means the client has a good experience. It's gonna influence their life and also the people they know. They'll tell other people about that experience.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Well, I think this is a kind of a good place for us to wrap it up. If people want to get in touch with you and ask any tax questions, wealth management, mortgage questions, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you? We're also going to put your contact information in the description of the video too.
Awesome. Yeah. Feel free to shoot me an email, or I'll throw my cell number. I don't know if I'm gonna throw my cell number in there. I might get all kind of crazy.
Well, maybe we'll start with LinkedIn.
Right. We'll start with LinkedIn, or you can shoot me an email. It's jthomas@solutionsgroupaccounting.com. I'm pretty easy to get hold of. You can call our firm. Phone number is 321-363-4982. Once you get a hold of our awesome reception team, just ask for JT. I'll be able to kind of coordinate and help you get the answers that you need. If you're looking for mortgage or anything like that, just let them know, and we'll connect the dots, whatever you need. Before I get off, I just want to drop one. I want to drop one nugget because I don't think I dropped enough nuggets for today. If you are a business owner and you're looking for somewhere to start with operations, I would simply start with just automating your simple daily tasks. So things as simple as paying your bills, like ordering your supplies, anything like that where it takes like time to figure out what you have. If you start with just automating those simple things, you'll be surprised at how much time it frees up for you to move on to the next thing. And then you'll find ways to automate those things and so on and so forth. So if somebody's looking to start today and you want to just like a simple exercise to get rolling, put all of your bills on automation so that they're taken care of. You don't have to worry about any late charges, anything happening. And it'll force you to be diligent in making sure that the revenue's matching what your bills are coming out. So just want to drop that action button there for you. If you want to try something today, if you're watching this video and you want to just, get rolling, start with that. And if you have any questions, we do business consulting. Feel free to reach out and I'll be happy to, hop on a call with you or a Zoom call and help you any way I can.
Awesome. Well, JT, thank you so much for being on. I feel like you shared a lot of wisdom. People are going to be benefiting. And again, I just enjoyed the conversation. I learned a lot today. So,
yeah, and me too. So I appreciate it and look forward to seeing what more we can do.
Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, folks. I thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe, share this so we can get the word out. And thank you for being subscribers. We really appreciate it. All right. Thanks. See you on the next one.